Hello and welcome to Creating Canon with your hosts AJ Hamilton and Nihilistic Chevalier Pervert.
That might officially be my new favorite name for me.
Each one of these names is like my children. I couldn't possibly choose just one to name you. I don't think. You know?
That's really sweet.
But you know what? You are named.
No, I don't. Remind me.
And Nicholas C. Pappas.
Yay!
That's actually who you are.
That is who I am.
Yeah.
This is another quarantined episode of Creating Canon, which...
Canon in the age of COVID.
Canon in the age of COVID. I like that. I like the terminology of that.
Or if we want to keep with the CC, COVID canon.
COVID canon. This is another episode of COVID canon.
Yeah.
I gotta say, it's weird that in COVID canon, I cheer for my own name and applaud for it, which is something I never did, I don't think, when we recorded together.
No, I don't think so. I think you were just so attracted to the normalcy
of my name.
Of your name, yes, exactly.
That I get excited.
Right. Yeah. What a time
that's
to be
something
alive.
that people have to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, AJ.
Well, here's an episode of us talking for a while to distract you from all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope you're all safe. I hope
Yes,
you're
indeed.
all okay.
Yep. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay inside.
And I hope the crazy things that you are watching are similar to the crazy things we are watching.
Oh, they are amazing.
And I'm hoping that you find comfort.
Yeah.
Perhaps. Because I know it's distracting to me to do these in a good way, in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's that.
Yes, indeed. We hope you are watching these movies along with us.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we are picking a lot of movies at this point in time that are, as of the recordings, available on YouTube or
Amazon or
Vudu.
Just streaming somewhere.
Either cheap or free. And the movie we watched this week, Tobe Hooper's Night Terrors from 1993, is available on Amazon. I bought it for $4.99.
You can rent it for $2.99.
Ever. Did you buy or rent?
I bought.
Me too!
Because $2 more, totally worth it.
You and I are both the same sucker. You know that?
So suckery. Well, although it was $12.99 on Vudu.
That is true. To own
like,
it was
whoa.
$12.99 on Vudu. Yeah, I had the
Watch
same
out.
reaction where I was like, nope, no thank you. And I thought to myself, $2.99 for a rental. But for $2 more, I can own it.
Yeah.
Own it forever. We
Own
won't
it
get into the
forever.
whole digital owning, and does that actually count as ownership?
Hey, ask Bruce Willis about that stuff.
Yeah. Ugh.
Did you ever
What?
hear about that? He tried to
No.
give his collection of music on iTunes to his daughter, and they were like, "No, you can't do that. You're just renting this shit."
Oh
from
yes.
us."
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's basically what we're doing. Is like
Exactly.
we're owning it by renting it forever.
Yep.
And if they ever decide to take Night Terrors down, we will no longer own it.
Oh my god! How would I fucking...
How will I live with myself?
How will I live without you?
I should have just paid the $2.99 because the chances of me watching this ever again are highly doubtful.
That was nice. That
Thanks.
was clever. Yeah.
I did my best.
Hey,
but
you want to tell?
you should watch this movie.
Oh, you should at least once.
This
in your life.
movie reunites, and I think I mentioned it last week. Reunites Tobe Hooper with Robert Englund and William Finley. All of them work together on a movie called Eaten Alive, which was Tobe Hooper's follow-up to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is... I don't know why in a million years you would do Texas Chainsaw Massacre and then follow it up directly with Eaten Alive, because that movie is 3 screws loose of a something. I don't know.
Oh,
I couldn't even complete that metaphor.
it's that off. It's that off the wall. Yes,
well, it's just so weird, and it is not a horror movie. I actually went and saw a double feature of Eaten Alive and Texas Chainsaw Massacre in theaters, and it was interesting because it was like one of the most horrifying movies ever made, and then what is essentially like a pared down creature feature that is essentially a play.
What?
Yeah, like the whole thing basically takes place in like 4 rooms of this hotel, and then there's like an outside area where a man throws the bodies that he has of people he has murdered into a lake, and then like you don't really even see the creature just eats them. It's not, you know what,
is it kind of like not having seen it, is it kind of like Beast in the Cellar in that vein?
Ish.
Okay.
It does have an old man who's slowly losing his mind, doing a lot of monologuing to the camera. It's wild. It is a wild movie, and I had never seen a trailer for it.
Yeah.
Or anything. I had watched it cold directly after Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so it was, I will put it this way. I think I would probably enjoy it more now that I know what it is if I rewatched it than I did watching it the one time.
I see.
But we spent a lot of time on Eaten Alive, and that's not what we're watching today. Today
we're not.
We watched Night Terrors.
Yeah.
Which is a late entry in Tobe Hooper's career.
Oh, man. Which is kind of sad that he went down this path, because I know that he is a talented director.
Yeah. Yeah. This feels like...
Well, before we get into really talking deep into it, what was this movie about? Yes.
Robert Englund plays a sadistic man who haunts a woman in her dreams with a bladed instrument. But it's not Freddy. It's a different character.
It's a different thing.
Yeah, it's a different thing. I just thought that. What connects the Marquis de Sade and Alexandria, Egypt? Your guess is as good as mine in Tobe Hooper's Night Terrors.
Does it feel like that this movie, like 3/4 of it was written and then the last quarter was improv? Or this was like, you know what it was? This is like 3 scripts that they just threw together and then really didn't have an ending for.
I would even go one step further in that I don't know if this movie was written as much as it was a fever dream, and then they just found a bunch of other footage and then put it with the fever dream and are like, I guess that's a movie now. Because it was...
And this so blatantly, at times, rips off Freddy.
Yes.
I don't even understand how they got away with that.
Yes, I mean...
it is 9 years later, but it's not that they weren't continuing to make those movies.
Yeah, 1994 was New Nightmare, which is the year after
this. Right.
And Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare was 91.
Well, and it was already a social touchstone. People knew who Freddy was.
Yes, exactly. At this point, they've already, quote-unquote, ended as we understood it would be to be ended.
Yeah.
At that point in time, we thought the Freddy Krueger series was over. Nightmare on Elm Street series. But yeah, it's fascinating, the fact that they went back to that well. Well, this is something that Tobe Hooper, if we want to talk about Tobe Hooper's career,
please,
for just a half a second. Tobe Hooper did obviously direct Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then he had one small movie before that. It was this movie called Eggshells, which I actually haven't seen because it's almost impossible to find.
Gotcha.
After Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he did Eaten Alive.
Okay.
Shortly after that, he directed this movie called The Dark, which he was fired halfway through and replaced by John Cardos. And John Cardos, if you remember, directed Gore 2. So Tobe Hooper is replaced on The Dark by the guy who made Gore 2.
Yeah.
The Dark is not great. Then he makes Salem's Lot, which is a TV series. After that, he made a small movie called The Funhouse, which not a lot of people love. And then his next real big hit was Poltergeist, which, there is a lot of people who believe that Steven Spielberg actually shadow directed Poltergeist behind Tobe Hooper.
Right.
And then Tobe Hooper basically made Life Force, Invaders from Mars, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, all for canon. And then from there, I think, and I hate to say this because I do enjoy, I actually really like Life Force and Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Right.
Neither of them were hits. by any means.
No.
But after Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, it was all downhill, doing Spontaneous Combustion, Night Terrors. He did do a movie with John Carpenter called Body Bags.
Interesting.
Like, they each directed a story segment.
Yeah.
It wasn't great, but it was entertaining.
No, I've seen it. Yeah, it's not great.
And then after that, it was just... He made a movie called Crocodile. He made The Toolbox Murders, Mortuary, and then Jin. I mean, like...
He's obsessed with crocodiles, man.
He is, I think. But the end of this guy's career is actually really sad because... Well, I don't know if it's just the end of his career. It's fascinating. I don't know if you could ever live up to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I don't think Tobe Hooper ever actually wanted to. And if you hear him talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he thought he was making a dark comedy.
Sure.
He didn't realize he was making, like, the scariest movie of all time. Which is why Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 leans heavily in the comedy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, this is a long preamble into... I don't know if horror was ever actually his genre as much as he just sort of got saddled with it.
Yeah, like pigeonholed into it. And people were like, hey, you're going to be great with this.
Yeah.
That's an interesting... That's difficult because this... this business of show is very odd how people get attached to genres or projects or groups that they don't necessarily work with, and yet this is such a symbiotic industry. I think it's hard to break out of that.
Well, when people are offering you the money to do the thing they're offering you to do, it's really hard to be like, well, actually, no, I don't want any money. Give me no money, and I'm going to take a chance. And then when you take that chance, you know, you may never work. I mean, Life Force... Yeah. Life Force is essentially a sci-fi film, but it does have a horror element to it. And,
very much so.
You know, Poltergeist, which is essentially a family film, obviously has a huge horror element to it. It's interesting that so many of his movies along the way... In fact, I don't think he made one movie that wasn't horror after Texas Chainsaw, or at least that had horror, like that didn't have horror elements. I don't think that was his that was his thing. So that's interesting.
Well, and that's the other thing is, even though it has horror elements, it's kind of like along the lines of the Marvel movies, where they're all quite similar, and yet some of them try to do other things with, say, a heist movie with Ant-Man or a spy movie with Winter Soldier. How it all has the aspects of a Marvel movie, and yet they can spread their wings a little bit here and there, and that's kind of like
Thor being a Shakespearean drama.
Exactly. And it's kind of like that with him, is that he was sort of horror genre, but then he put in aspects or tried to do something different with it. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. This movie is weird.
Yeah, well,
Night Terrors is a very odd thing because it's almost like pseudo-philosophical in a way that I don't know if... No, that's why I'm saying pseudo-philosophical, in a way that somebody who's taken an intro to philosophy class sort of thinks that they spout certain different things. A lot of characters in this spout a lot of one-liners that feel like they're profound, but absolutely are not.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I feel like this movie is just this movie's a mindfuck in certain ways.
Yeah.
Partially, I think, by design, and then partially because, you know, we're kind of hopping into this part of it pretty early. But reading how this movie was made, at one point in time, it was going to be directed by a guy named Jerry O'Hara.
Okay.
And the only reason Robert Englund signed on to the movie was because they were going to be filming in Egypt, and he had never been to Egypt, so he was like, that's fucking cool. I want to go to Egypt.
Good reason.
Yeah, I mean, I get that.
Yeah.
And at one point, the movie was based off of, like, short stories by the Marquis de Sade, and then they decided to change that and make it a completely period piece about the Marquis de Sade, and that's when I guess that director left, and they decided to then move the filming of the movie from Egypt to Israel, because obviously the Golden Globus connection.
Naturally, yep.
Although, to be fair, this was actually the canon years that was post Go-Go Boys. This was only a Globus film.
Right, but still, they were both from there. Yeah.
But still. And then England got really pissed off about that, and they were like, well, we're going to hire your favorite director, which is Tobe Hooper. They moved the film, obviously, to Israel, and he was happy and still on board.
Mm-hmm,
but at that point, they didn't have enough money, nor could they do the period piece that they wanted to do.
Oh, Jesus.
So they had to rewrite it again to make it like a quarter period piece and then contemporary, like the rest of it contemporary.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's a long preamble into getting to. I think you're absolutely right. And this movie went through a million different.
A lot of iterations
To get to where it's at, which probably is why it feels kind of disjointed, because I gotta be honest, in my plot, what is unclear, and I'm just gonna give, like, there's three basic storylines going on. Marquis de Sade is in jail, and it's the actual Marquis de Sade played by Robert Englund,
I guess,
and he's being tortured. And then we have a second plot line that is an American Christian archaeologist. He's looking for something in Alexandria, Virginia.
No, not Alexandria, Virginia.
Whoa, shit. Virginia, what the fuck? Sorry.
I thought that too at the first, because it doesn't say Egypt, Alexandria, Egypt. It just says Alexandria, 1993.
Yeah, that's true. Man. I meant Alexandria, Egypt, right? And then the third plot line is that archaeologist's daughter is coming to Egypt to visit her father. Shortly after she gets there, the father needs to leave and work on the site. And then she gets caught up in a pseudo-cult of people who all are interested in the writings of the Marquis de Sade.
Sure.
And she just so happens to look like the Marquis de Sade's enemy. And the leader of this pseudo-cult is the Marquis de Sade's great something or other.
Sure.
He's a descendant, right?
And his name is Paul Chevalier.
Paul Chevalier. No relation to Maurice Chevalier.
Aww.
And the reason I wanted to just, like, give the basic three outlines is I'm assuming once we actually start in on this, we are going to confuse the fuck out of everybody.
Well, and there's a separate quarter story in this that's going on about some hooded people who are praying at an altar.
Well, that's a different cult, like. A
different cult is, like, happening sort of separate from all of this until the end. And then you understand what's been going on. But the fact that...
Do you understand what's been going on?
No. Okay. But it kind of wraps up or converges. Yeah. It converges with the rest of the story.
Converges, I guess, at some point in time, but I'm
at
this point still unclear as to why they converge.
I am too, and a lot of things happen off screen that don't make any sense.
Yes.
But I just want to start out by saying that I absolutely loved this movie.
Fair enough.
Kidding.
I actually, you know what?
It was.
I will start out.
It was weird.
I will start out by saying that. I mean, obviously, we usually wait till, like, did you like it or not at the end. But one thing I will say is this movie was certainly interesting at times and had some really interesting images and some really cool moments. But
it was weird.
It was out there. I will say that this isn't the movie's fault. But I will say the second I hit play...
Yeah.
And we should note that this movie is not available in high def. It's only available in standard def. And my first note is this is the standardest of definitions. It felt like a VHS copy that I just paid $5 for.
Yeah. If you could find the VHS, it'd probably be 50 cents.
Yeah.
Sadly. But, yeah, I agree. Wasn't great quality. Wasn't
and
horrible, though. But
it wasn't in widescreen format.
No, of course not.
No. Yeah, you're right. It's not the worst of quality.
It's not the worst we've seen. It wasn't a YouTube video.
Yeah. So it's fine.
It's 90s.
It's the 90s, and the other thing too that I noticed almost immediately is the movie starts off with the Marquis de Sade getting whipped on his feet.
Yeah.
And whipped on his back.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you noticed, but the whipping sounds on his feet and his back sounded exactly the same.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but they're both skin, so it makes complete sense, right?
Well, no,
it's all the same.
But they were using two different whipping.
It's all the same. It's all the same.
Hold on. No, AJ, no.
What?
No.
Oh.
Look, I'm an expert in whipping people. And
I see.
Yeah. No, I at that point I actually wrote down like 45 seconds in, I was like, oh no, these Foley artists are not good.
No.
And they did not disappoint me through the entire movie.
Oh, no, not at all.
I mean, they lived up to my expectations, is what I was trying to say.
Lived down to your expectations, maybe.
That is true.
Yeah.
I was really confused because, like, the Marquis de Sade is whipped on his feet, and his feet are bloody.
Right.
Yet he's able to walk on them, like, 2 seconds later without an issue.
Yeah, he's just... Well, we don't know how much time passed in between there, but you're right.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Do we?
Well, I mean... He's got fresh wounds on the back.
On his back, yeah. He has bloody shirt.
Yeah.
So this is the sequence of events of torture. We pan down in kind of a cool shot. That's for later.
It starts at his feet.
It starts at his feet, pans down, and then switches in scene to him being tied up on an X, a big X cross type of thing, and they're whipping his back. And then this was the weirdest fucking thing. That this was a torture. They open his eyes up and they drip some
acid, I think?
Acid or something. I don't know. Something that I would assume takes away his eyesight and turns his pupil
it's
blue.
Sort of like the milky eye thing.
Yeah, the blind eye type of Nick Fury type of eye. And then they walk him back to his cell, and he's like giving high fives and like nods to all the people in the prison thing. Also, didn't that prison feel like if you were watching an opera of I don't know, Faust or something, Dante's Inferno? Just that's what it felt like. That the quality, because it was kind of surreal, but and yet they were still trying to make it look a little real, I think.
Well, what was so weird about it is it was so obviously look. I am not a geologist, nor am I an expert in the history of prisons. No. But one of the things that I will say is it looked like every single prison I've ever seen in a Robin Hood movie. Yes. In the first part of the movie, where they are essentially not in Europe. They're in Africa or wherever they're fighting in those parts of the movie. Mm-hmm. And the Marquis de Sade was imprisoned in France. Yeah. And he was so clearly in, like, the rocks and, like, it did not look French to me in any way, shape, or form.
There was no exterior either.
There was no exterior, but I don't think, and I could be wrong, but I don't think France had a mountain that you could, like, those... I know that I might be sounding super stupid to some people when I say this, so to be clear, like, if you are an expert, please correct us. But it is not what I would picture a French prison to look like. It is what I would picture an Israeli prison from the 1700s to look like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is my point.
Well, I mean, they did...
Although Israel wasn't a country in the 1700s, but a place of that time period. And actually, technically, Egypt... You get my point. Yeah. Well, I mean, they only had one charge to get them into the past on their time machine, and then one to get them into the future. So, I mean, they could only choose one place, and they clearly chose wrong. Yeah,
sadly.
I think so. This is where I think the movie is already making a mistake, is when he's getting whipped on his feet and on his back. He's making these faces of like, ooh, that hurt a little bit. And it's the Marquis de Sade.
He loved that shit.
What he should have been doing, because he looks like, oh, that hurt, but then he has like a snarky comeback or quip.
Yeah.
And every time he got hit, it should have looked like he was about to fucking cum his pants.
Yeah, I was surprised by that as well. It was very confusing because I was like, wait, is he requesting this? Like, establishing it, I was like, is this his choice? Because, really especially unclear. If we know who the Marquis de Sade is.
Well, and on top of that, I will also say that it seemed like this was the Marquis de Sade's last prison stint.
Yes, clearly.
Which the Marquis de Sade died in, I believe, his 70s. And Robert Englund in this movie looked all of 45.
Yeah, he was 74 when he died in 1814. Okay. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. I'm glad that I was on that.
Well, I really think that this might have... They might have been taking liberties with...
totally.
With this Marquis de Sade example.
Yeah, you're right.
You know?
And I shouldn't hold it to too much, like, it's not a... It's just weird. It's just...
Agreed.
The choices that they make in the movie... I guess that's the point. The choices that they make in the movie...
Yeah.
Just feel like, I don't know why you're making these choices. and it starts like from frame 1. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make here.
Oh, totally.
But anyways, he goes back after his eye has been covered in acid. And there's a prisoner who's like, "Oh, you fucking fancy pants. Oh, yeah, little sissy.
Oh, you Lord Fauntleroy.
Yeah, Lord Fauntleroy." And he's tied up in the weirdest way of like, that prisoner is held completely immobile on like a board with like a metal collar around his neck.
Right,
so
yeah.
he can't move.
It's like a stand-up stocks, almost.
Yes, and he's going off on the Marquis de Sade, and the Marquis de Sade's looking away, and like he hasn't uncovered his eye that has been burned in acid. And then all of a sudden, he takes his handkerchief down from his face. He looks at the prisoner, and he's got that milky eye, and this is the first time we see it. And the prisoner's like, oh no, oh no, oh no.
And he also splashes him with water for some reason. To like wake him up. There was a weird like time passage.
Yes,
did you notice
that was unclear.
He went to sleep and then he's woken back up,
and then he just keeps hitting the Marquis. Keeps using a cup to bang against the prison bars, going, "Look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me."
He's hypnotizing him like in Get Out.
Is that what that was?
I think so.
Because what eventually happens is the prisoner's like, "I can't take it anymore," and he rips out his eyes.
Yeah, he blinds himself.
Which I thought could have been cooler, and maybe what they were actually trying to do was if they had made it clear that that had been going on for days, and that the Marquis de Sade was staying awake for days in order to torture this man into having no sleep, and the prisoner eventually goes crazy, that would have been awesome, but they didn't. If that's what they were trying to do, they didn't do that. It
was almost like supernatural in a way.
Yeah, and that was weird to me because there is a lot of supernatural stuff that happens because at some point soon, and I don't know if it's this exact moment or shortly after, we find out that the reason the Marquis de Sade is in jail is because of this like woman,
the Madame de Beaumont.
Yes, and we see a picture of her.
Yeah, they've given him a picture of her to hang in his cell.
Also, apparently, he has a lot of makeup and wigs in his cell too.
Oh yeah, he does himself up.
He does himself up.
Yeah.
But anyways, at this point, and we're only 2 minutes into the movie, dear God.
I know.
We cut to 1993 Alexandria.
Virginia
or Egypt. We're not sure which. One of the two. And that's when we meet William Finley, who plays Dr. Mattison. William Finley, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but Phantom of the Paradise, he plays the Phantom in Phantom of the Paradise.
Oh, no, I haven't.
You've never seen Phantom of the Paradise?
No, I haven't.
Oh, my Lord, AJ. We might need to have an intervention.
I'll self-flagellate. I am very, very sorry.
It is truly, it's actually one of those, you know what? It's fucking great.
All right.
It's fucking great. And maybe we need to have a cannon blast of some sort.
Sure.
On it or something. Because
I'm all for it. Let's do it.
Maybe we should do cannon fodder next week on Phantom of the Paradise rather than doing...
Yes, that's what we're going to do.
Is that what you want to do?
Decided.
Okay, cool. Great.
Well, cool. That's decided.
All right. That's good. I'm happy.
That's easy. I love it.
I love that movie. But anyways, I guess all right.
Thanks,
now that
William.
we know what we're doing.
Thanks, William Finley, for figuring out our programming.
Now that we know what we're doing next week, we can just end the episode, right?
Ah, perfect. Yeah, that was enough.
Okay, all right. That was enough. All right, everybody. Join us next time.
Yep. We ended in Alexandria. It's fine.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
2 minutes into the movie. No, we can't do that because there's so much more to talk about.
God, this movie is so horny.
It is. It is. Well, and from the moment we meet Dr. Madison is waiting at the airport, and this woman named Sabina, who we will come to find out is Sabina. Right now, we don't know who she is. Is like, "Oh, Dr. Madison, it's been a while," and he goes, "Oh, yeah, no, I'm here waiting for my daughter. I've been all tied up," and she was like, "I thought that's how you liked it," and he was like, "My daughter's here. We can't have this conversation. I got to go. Bye." And she's like, "Okay,
lose my number."
Exactly. And at that point, she just goes away, and all of a sudden, his daughter, whose name is Jeannie, is just standing there.
Yeah.
And that was the weirdest airport reconnection I've ever seen, because she just stands there and he like runs up and hugs her and she's sort of like,
oh yeah, hey. Also, he is massively tall. And she is, it's so awkward of a hug.
Tiny, short. And then we cut to what I'm going to dub exposition dinner with a crazy Christian.
Oh, that was amazing, because he has not said her name yet, but he says, "Lord, thank you for bringing my daughter Jeannie here." And just like every single piece is in that prayer and in that dinner.
Yeah. Well, as you know, it's been 6 months since we've had dinner together.
Oh, that's
because
right.
You have just come into town.
Oh, yeah.
And I am happy for that.
And I have been on this archaeological dig.
Literally, we get all the exposition.
And he is so Christian. He is very religious.
Which is weird, because it does seem that when Sabina, just the scene earlier, talks to him about sex and being tied up, he doesn't say, "What are you talking about?" or "That's disgusting." He goes, "Don't mention that here. My daughter's here."
Yeah, which implies that they've been together.
Yes.
Yeah. And that he is somehow part of the cult?
Question mark?
I don't know. We never go back to that either.
Yes. No, they never have. In fact, the only other interaction those two characters ever have is less of an interaction and more that Madison sees Sabina outside with his daughter Jeannie, and we'll get how that happens. Yeah. And he just basically says, "Don't ever see her again.
That's a bad person.
It's a bad person.
Bad news."
And then they quote Bible quotes at each other as to whether or not Jeannie should see her. But anyways.
And again, this is I think an attempt to show an extreme. Like extreme nihilism in Marquis de Sade and extreme piousness in the Doctor.
Yes.
So I don't know if that's clever or not. It's just part of the storytelling.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that is in some ways an interesting thing for Jeannie if she is a devout believer and she moves into nihilism.
Yes.
But that's not what happens.
No, it's not. She's just a teenager.
And she seems to be at least somewhat religious, or at least plays it for her dad.
I mean, she knows about religion, at least, yeah.
But what ends up happening is the very next morning, in this really weird scene, Matheson, the Doctor, comes in. He wakes up his daughter, who's like half naked. Yeah. By the way, which I thought was actually a really creepy scene. The way
she's in a t-shirt and panties, and she doesn't have bedclothes on, so she's just like. She wakes up and he just barges into her room,
and she's laying there like butt up in the air, shirt up, and like panties like scrunched, like she's highly sexualized. There is my point.
Very much so.
But he's like, "I got a gift for you," and all of a sudden, her friend Beth, who I don't know how they know each other, or what, that was really unclear, comes running in.
Yeah, Beth seems very much Americanized.
Yes.
And we never understand why she or her very American boyfriend are in Alexandria.
Well, I thought the boyfriend was from Egypt because the dad speaks with an accent.
Yeah, but the son does not.
But the son does not.
It feels like they were educated in America, maybe.
Maybe. And I have no clue what Beth's purpose was there. I have no clue if Beth and Jeannie are friends, or if this is Jeannie's first time to Egypt, because it does feel like it's Jeannie's first time to Egypt.
Yeah, it really does.
And I'll get to why in just a second. Because first, though, they're sitting there, Jeannie and Beth, in bed after the Doctor's left, and they're catching up really quickly. And they haven't seen each other for 6 months. Yeah. And Beth goes, "What's been going on? How are you?" And Jeannie goes, "Now I know why sex is a sin." Because I've had it, and it was good. And then Beth is like, "You Jezebel." Well, anyways, I haven't seen you in 6 months, but
I'm going to leave now.
I'm going to leave. We're going to go
You want to go to the races tomorrow?
Yes. And then she, all of a sudden, then you hear honking, and it's her boyfriend honking from outside, and I was like, what the fuck?
That boyfriend was an asshole, clearly.
Yes,
he was a bad person.
I have some notes on him later on. But then she is in a Muslim country, right? Alexandria is the 6th biggest Muslim city in the world.
Oh, wow.
and Jeannie goes out for the day by herself, which both of these things are fine.
That's fine.
Except for...
It's 1993 also.
Every single woman in the frame is in the burqa.
Yes.
Right? Or at least some sort of
head covering. Yeah.
And Jeannie is walking around in public in a fucking crop top
and
that
short
barely
shorts.
Covers her boobs.
Yeah.
And short shorts. And I was like, this is not smart.
Doesn't seem like it would be.
And guess what? I was right, because almost immediately she's attacked by a bunch of dudes.
Naturally. I felt like that was the most formulaic they could have gone for.
Yeah.
Like, when you are in a new country like that, and you're wandering around, exploring, what do you expect? Of course it's going to be two guys who want to rape you.
Yes, well, absolutely, because that's
Christ.
Exactly. Well, and this is a whole other conversation we should be having, because basically every brown person in this movie serves one of two purposes. It's either to attack Jeannie or to give up their lives so Jeannie can survive.
Yes, naturally.
It's one or the other. It's never like they exist to, live in the fucking country that they live in. And the thing about the crop top thing that I want to be very clear about is it's just one of those things where it's like, you don't go to another country and not follow the rules or the morals of their customs of that country.
Well, especially since the father is an archaeologist, I would assume that he would warn against that. It's just
that's exactly right.
It's incredibly ignorant as a writer or a director. Not to say that it is a. I mean, the policies and the customs of a country are what they are, but it just seems like it was not realistic with the given circumstances.
Well, it's one of those. The second I saw her in a crop top with every other female character in that scene, head to toe, I was like, okay, so she's going to either be... Someone's going to attack her and try to take sexual advantage of her, or she is going to be attacked verbally for showing so much skin in public.
Criticized.
Which also, I want to point out that not one person on the street seems to care that she is half naked.
Just those two assholes.
Except for the two guys who try to attack her.
Yeah.
And then immediately Sabina all of a sudden shows up out of nowhere and saves her.
Yeah.
Which, at that point in the movie, I thought, well, that's really convenient.
Yeah.
Although, now that I'm thinking about it in retrospect...
Now you look back at it. Yeah.
Did Sabina set that up?
I would assume so.
Okay. Because that wasn't clear.
Yeah, it's definitely not clear. And on a second watching... I still don't think the logic of all of this works necessarily.
No, I don't think so either.
But it does turn out, and this is spoilers, obviously. You've listened to an episode or two of this show, I'm assuming, before. We're going to break it all down. But the ending of this is that all of this was to sort of lead Jeannie into the clutches of this cult. And it kind of, in that situation, does it feel a little bit like Midsommar? Did you ever get that vibe?
Oh, yes. When you said Midsommar. Oh
Not Midsummer Night's Dream.
That's where my mind went. I was like,
Midsommar.
Nothing like Midsummer Night's Dream. Like, doesn't make it. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes, in some ways. Although I will say with Midsommar, the thing about how she ends up in the cult is she just happens to be a woman that the one dude seems to be into.
It could have been anyone.
Where it could have been anyone. In this...
Yeah. It's a very specific
Jeannie
person,
specifically looks like the woman who the Marquis de Sade was imprisoned by.
Do we think that she is a reincarnation of that woman? Is that what we're supposed to assume?
I have no clue.
Me neither.
In some ways, I think that's partially what we're supposed to assume.
Sure.
And again, this goes to... I have some major questions as we start rolling through this, in that a lot of the script made no sense.
No, it didn't.
None.
Well, and there's a lot of switching back and forth through time,
yes.
Just randomly. Not. It's just like to separate scenes. It's almost as if it's not thematically relevant. It's just to say, hey, we've been in the future for a long time. We should check back in the past
on what the Marquis is doing.
Right, exactly.
And to be clear too, every single scene of the Marquis de Sade is basically just him in prison. And every once in a while, thematically, it sort of works.
Yeah.
But only going from one to another. Like, So it's never like thematically fits from
Bookended.
the past.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
It's usually like all of a sudden we cut to the past for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Marquis does something that bookends out of it where you're like, oh,
I get
okay.
now. Yeah.
But I don't know why we went there in the first place.
It's only half clever.
Yes. So basically, Sabina has now saved Jeannie and is driving her around. She's like, why don't you come over to my place? I have to go somewhere tonight.
I gotta do some things.
But I'm going to shower at my place first. And then...
Then we'll go to a party. I'll take you to a party.
Yeah, tomorrow night.
Yeah.
What I loved about when she hops in the shower... First of all, that's the fastest shower in the world.
I wrote that down too. That was like a 34-second shower.
And then afterwards, what I thought was amazing is, I don't know what she was wearing, but it looked like a see-through hazmat suit. It was so weird.
Is that just because we're surrounded by hazmat suits right now?
I don't think so. I think I would have thought of that anyways. That was nuts.
That was very weird.
But then there's a moment where, like, so... What's happened is Sabina's like, just make yourself at home.
Yep.
And Jeannie is just walking around Sabina's house. She walks outside and she finds a picture of that woman that put the Marquis de Sade in jail that looks exactly like her.
Yep.
And there are just stacks of books by the Marquis de Sade.
And like candles and different stuff
and everything.
Like that.
And Sabina's like, hey, so I see you found this. And what was amazing to me is Jeannie goes... I'm not as innocent as I look. And I wrote down, you don't look innocent.
You don't.
There's nothing about you that looks innocent.
Nothing about this is a transformation.
No.
At all.
And then, out of nowhere, Sabina's like, you know what? We're friends now, and I want to mark this occasion of our friendship.
Yeah.
Here's a book by the Marquis de Sade. Read this.
Which Marquis de Sade book do you think it was, by the way?
She said it was a book on his philosophies.
So...
And I looked it up and I couldn't figure out which one it was.
He has something called the 120 Days of Sodom, which I doubt it was, but they also have Philosophy in the Bedroom, which I'm assuming was it. But we don't know.
There's a movie called Salo, based off the 120 Days of Sodom.
Oh God, yeah, I've not seen it, but I've seen a review video on YouTube about it, and it sounds horrifying.
Do you want to watch it?
I don't.
I have it.
I don't.
It's a Criterion Collection movie. It is Pasolini.
Podcast over.
It's a landmark film.
Podcast over.
So you are totally okay with watching, then, just to be clear, Phantom of the Paradise, but not watching Salo.
Well, I have no idea what happens Phantom of the Paradise, but I do know what happens in Salo.
No one eats shit in Phantom of the Paradise. So
and also, I'm not going to watch a Serbian film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a few on my list.
Centipede? Do you want to watch?
Not going to do that either. Any
First
of them,
or second or third sequence?
Neither. None of those.
Oh
no.
Man, you're missing out.
I got a list, man, of not watching movies.
You know what's really funny is out of all of the things we just talked about, the only one that is not on my shelf of movies sitting directly to my left is a Serbian film.
Oh, thank God.
I own Human Centipede.
Yep.
All sequences. I own Sala. This is... Is there something wrong with me?
There absolutely is, man.
I also own Irreversible.
I was going to say that one, too.
Man. Is there...
Yep, definitely something wrong with you.
Okay.
Ichi the Killer. I mean, that's
a different... that one's fine.
What was that one with Matt Dillon that just came out? I haven't seen it yet, but the house that
Jack built. I haven't seen that yet either.
Yeah, no,
that's a Lars Van Trier movie, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, it is.
So
I haven't seen Antichrist either. No. Oh man.
You're missing out in life, my friend.
Clearly.
Anyways.
All right.
Anyways.
Wow.
This is not a
distraction.
Movie to gross AJ out podcast. Basically, this is where that conversation happens.
Yes.
At this point, Sabina brings Jeannie back home.
Mm-hmm.
Matheson sees it, and Madison is basically like, "Hey,
that lady is no bueno."
Yep, they have Bible quotes, and then Madison says, "By the way, I need to go back to the archaeological dig site, so you're going to be on your own now."
But still,
do
not
see her.
see her.
And she's like, "Okay, I promise." boom, we cut to them showing up at a party.
Yeah, of course.
Them being Sabina and
Jeannie. Yeah.
Sabina seems to be treating Jeannie as if she's the guest of honor, which she is totally cool with.
And doesn't she see her friend Beth at that party?
Yes, Beth. Well, I think Beth sees her. She doesn't see Beth.
That's right. We see Beth.
And Beth is sort of surprised that she's there.
Right.
Because she gets to go straight to the VIP room.
Woohoo.
Where at this point Sabina goes, "Take off your shoes."
She's like,
and
why?
Why? So this man can wash your feet.
Fucking feet. How weird.
She takes off her shoes and she is wearing stockings.
Yep.
Like thick black pantyhose. And the guy who's supposed to be washing her feet, and this is my actual note, which was, dude, just wash your feet. Don't lick and kiss them like a fucking perv.
Well, he also rips off her stockings.
But from the feet. Like, he rips the feet open.
Yeah.
Which also, the way, look, I am not a foot person.
Okay.
And her foot is not framed well. She's got her foot in such a weird way that, like, her toe, it was so gross.
I mean, Toby Hooper didn't have the many examples of Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
So
that's actually the thing about Quentin Tarantino movies that have always been tough for me is all the foot close-ups, especially dirty feet, because he particularly seems to like dirty feet.
You know what's the weirdest thing about that is I didn't notice it until people started bringing it up.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. No, I didn't. I was just like, that's a choice.
In Death Proof, there's a scene where a woman's foot is sticking out of the car, and I believe it's supposed to be stuntman Mike who just like starts fondling and licking the feet.
Yes, yeah.
He didn't use Kurt Russell. He just went ahead and did that himself.
I did not know that. That's
he being Quentin, by the way.
That's weird.
Anyways, the foot thing happens, at which point Sabina puts some sort of thing on top of a hookah.
Yes. She drugs the hookah.
She drugs the hookah.
Also, she was very bad at hookahing.
All of them were.
Jeannie, though.
Jeannie
was very bad at that.
At this point, she starts freaking out.
Man, so many snakes.
So many
Why
snakes.
did it
There's
have
a woman
to be
who
snakes?
deep throats a snake in this movie.
A couple of times.
Yep. And there's belly dancers. And at this point, I wrote down, I have a feeling this movie is not culturally sensitive.
Probably not.
Yeah. And Jeannie starts freaking out. Mm-hmm. The next thing we know, she wakes up in bed.
Yeah.
And Beth is there.
Ish.
Yeah. Yeah, hung-ish over. Because, Beth is there. She's like, it's time to go to...
The races!
The races with camels and tents. And we'll do
horsies.
It up Arabian style. Mm-hmm. I think she had said at one point in time earlier in the movie.
Oh, definitely.
And this is when they're in the car with Chuck. And this is when we first really meet Chuck and not just see Chuck.
Right.
And
the honking boyfriend.
Yes, I was going to say, this is the thing. Beth and Chuck pull up. This is before Beth even gets out and says, like, hey, we're here. They pull up, and Chuck lays on the horn, waits 2 seconds, and lays on the horn again, waits 2 seconds, and then just is like, bah! And we sit there for, like, what seemed like an hour as he just laid on the horn.
Yeah. I honestly tuned out.
At this point, I was like, I fucking hate Chuck.
Oh, yeah.
He's a dick. And then Jeannie finally gets in the car, and Beth and Chuck have a conversation that's like, you shut the fuck up. No, you shut the fuck up. No, you shut the fuck up. And I was like, Chuck, I hate you. You should shut the fuck up.
Yep.
But that's it.
And then they get to the race, and Jeannie is not in a good place. She's still hungover from whatever the hell. And I don't know what the purpose of the drugging was, because I don't know if they do anything to her at that point, but maybe it's a psychological breaking down of...
I think it's, to start the hallucinations.
Start the hallucinations, start the quote-unquote corruption of her, because they already don't know what kind of corruption she has of herself. But
and what's so fascinating is at this point, too, when they get to the races, it immediately cuts to a scene of Chuck, Jeannie, and Beth surrounded by a bunch of Egyptians, probably. Mm-hmm. But the point is, still, they're like playing musical instruments just so these three can dance. Mm-hmm. and they all seem to be excited. They all being the Egyptians are like, oh my god, white people are dancing to our music.
Yeah.
We are so lucky.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially that another culture is for their enjoyment, for their entertainment.
Yep.
Well, at this point, we see Mahmoud, who is he's riding a black horse. He's racing. I don't know if he's racing. We never really see a race.
No, it's unclear.
Yeah, there's just a lot of large horse-like animals around. Then, while we're watching this, Jeannie actually she doesn't pass out, but she gets real sick. She's not doing well. And save the cat moment, Mahmoud comes over, rides his horse over, and he's like, hey, give this girl some air. Come on, hey, get out of here. Which means she's immediately smitten with him, or will be. Gets us on his side already, so...
Yeah, does it though?
No, not at all, but we know that he is a character now, because he has had interaction with our main character, and I think... I don't even know the next time we see him, but at this point, they just throw her back in the car, which
they bring her home.
It feels like they could have absolutely done that in a completely different way. It just feels like they wanted another setting.
Yeah, like a set piece that didn't even have a set piece.
Not really, no.
Like, it was weird. Like, if we would have actually seen the race, it would have been one thing, but we don't.
And again, this is another point where we know that she is eventually supposed to meet Mahmoud. And that means that Chuck, the boyfriend, had to get Beth, the girlfriend, to invite Jeannie to that race. Or maybe they would have had Mahmoud meet her some other way, but
somehow
that seems like everything is all lined up. Everything is all supposed to happen.
Which is actually, and that's part of... So this is one of those things where it's like, if that had just been the tiniest bit clearer, I think I would have been more interested in the movie. But that is all stuff for us as people who have watched enough movies to look back and put together like, oh, this was all foretold. This was all grand design.
Sure.
That I think would be more fascinating if we were like, wait a second, what is this grand design? Because what's really fucking weird is at the end of the movie, they don't even acknowledge all of this design. Because... at the end of the movie, Mahmoud is basically just there. Just there. At the end.
Yeah.
And there's a moment where it's like, he was hired to seduce you, which eventually happens, and we'll get to that.
But it was also, it was also one of his tests.
Some test for him to get part of, but this is the thing that was unclear, is like, did Chuck bring Jeannie out to the races to meet Mahmoud? Or was there just a moment between Mahmoud being just a kind person and Jeannie that Chuck saw, and then Chuck told the people in the cult-like thing, like, hey, this is the guy.
Yeah.
We
don't know.
That part, this is where it's like, it just gets so unclear.
Right.
At this point, we do go back to the Marquis de Sade, and the only reason that I know that is I wrote down, we are now 40 minutes into the movie. I'm not sure how these storylines connect.
Nope.
And I have no clue what the Marquis de Sade has to do with Alexandria, Egypt.
No.
The Marquis de Sade who lived his whole entire life in France.
Yeah.
And there is no real... And I looked this up. There's no real anything saying that he spent any time anywhere other than Europe.
Yeah, I don't know why his descendants would have moved their death cult to Alexandria.
Yes.
There's absolutely no relation. It doesn't...
Yeah, at this point, we don't know.
We don't.
She's reading...
And we'll never know.
We will never know. I had hoped that we would find out, but nope. At this point, she is reading the book of the Marquis de Sade.
Yep.
She goes out with Mahmoud for just riding a horse. They happen to meet by happenstance. And at this point, I was like, oh, okay, this does feel engineered. This is the point where I know it was engineered.
Yeah.
Because they meet again by happenstance in the middle of
in a market. And that's when, have we even talked about Fatima? Because
we haven't.
Fatima is an Egyptian woman who is a live-in cook or housekeeper or something for the doctor. And she also has been very protective of Jeannie so far. And in this scene at the marketplace, she actually gives Jeannie a protective ankh or some sort of cross or something like that as a necklace
that is shaped like a mermaid.
Yes.
And the reason that's important is because when things happen later, Well, actually, Fatima joins, like, a prayer circle at one point.
Yeah, she goes into this place off of the market or off of
Yeah.
something, and it's this weird...
That's a cult. Like, it's a separate cult.
Yeah, but we don't know that.
Like, that's like hood monks, and they are praying to a stone mermaid.
Yeah. Well, before this even happens, she meets at Mahmoud, and then there's a very specific sequence of events that I wrote down, which was sort of just blew my mind, and it all leads up to us meeting the main bad guy of this movie. So after she meets Mahmoud again, they end up having the sex.
Oh, wait, before that,
Okay.
I just want to say, there's a moment where they are riding horses together. And he goes, "This is my land. This is where I live."
Right.
And it's, first of all, it's just desert and palm trees.
And the beach, kind of.
And the beach. And then they sit down for
yes.
for a real heart-to-heart where
yes.
I don't even know what he says. And she says, "I don't know. This place, once I got here, everything has changed for me. I'm not the person I used to be."
It's been like
at that
3
point
days.
I was like, "How so?"
Yeah.
Because I don't know who the fuck you are.
Or were. Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like, I don't know who she was. If she was super Christian, and Beth was like, "Oh my God, I found this boy, his name's Chuck, and we actually had sex." And she was like, "Ew, sex before marriage,
Oh my
that's terrible."
gosh, you can't do that.
But no, the day she shows up, she was like, "Hey, guess what? I've been fucking every dude. And now I know why sex is a sin."
Yeah.
They could have easily set her up in just a 1 or 2 lines to be like a super uber Christian. And then with the drugs, and then with her, the kissing and things like that, we would know that she had changed.
Yeah,
Okay,
yes,
so
exactly.
So
this discussion that they have, leads into them being intimate, and that, oh my God, that sequence of events, it's not even softcore porn, because we see okay. It's cutting between them in the bedroom of his place, I don't know, and then it cuts to him naked, butt-ass naked, riding a horse.
I don't know if you had this experience. I was watching, and you could see him on the horse.
Yep.
and it's like it cuts to like almost a close-up of him.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, I saw this thing bouncing on the saddle, and I was like, what is that? And then I realized, oh, that's his dick.
Well, see,
that is his dick bouncing on the saddle up and down. I was like, what the fuck is happening here?
If you've ever seen a saddle, I thought it was the horn.
That's what I thought it was too.
The thing that you hold on the middle.
I was like, is the saddle horn broken? Nope, that's just his dick. That's his bouncing dick.
Yeah.
It's something I would never thought I would have seen in a movie in my entire lifetime. And you know what?
Yeah.
I am partially happy that I've seen that, because it was bonkers.
Yeah. I thought there was something like if you've ever seen the first episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, I thought it was the pleats of the pants, and it wasn't. It definitely was not. And they do some riding of their own, and then it cuts to the weirdest costume party.
Yes.
So in this sequence of events, we're at the costume party. We see that Jeannie and Sabina are there. We also see that Chuck and Beth are there in another part of it. And there's this weird part where Beth like makes fun of an old man to his face.
What a bunch of losers. Look at this old fart. That's what she said.
Yeah, and then
the old man goes, "Hi, son.
Hi, son. Hey, Chuck." And it's like, what? Why would you
Chuck
say
goes,
something that...
"This is my dad.
This old fart is my dad," or something like that.
Yeah. And he goes, "Oh, I take it this is Beth." Yeah, you're right. If you don't know who his parents are at this party, why are you making fun of them to their faces?
Or anyone. Have you ever walked up to an old person that you didn't know, or any person that you wanted to deride in public and say, "Oh my God, look at that person. I hate their haircut." Like, you're not 2 feet away from them.
Listen, I don't do that now because
Right.
A, you have to be 6 feet away from them, and B, old people should be inside.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. But if it wasn't under these circumstances, I still wouldn't do it.
No, clearly. But during this costume party, almost right after that, then we go to the mermaid altar that Fatima
right.
is, And then they do something. They're like lighting candles and praying and stuff, and she sits down in the middle of that. Then we cut back to Jeannie watching a puppet show of some sort of the Marquis de Sade.
Yes.
And it has the Marquis.
It's like a Punch and Judy show,
yeah,
and like
exactly.
all the really ugly old rich people. Because look,
yeah.
I hate to say this, Beth was right. Every single one of those rich people looked weird and ugly.
Well, and at that,
very specifically unattractive.
And at that point, I was actually confused because it didn't appear. I thought we had completely cut away from the costume party, and that was just one night. But this is a setting within the costume party, I guess, and everybody has on weird clown makeup and stuff, and they're watching
the Marquis de Sade?
Yeah,
pale, the white powder with the
mole,
Black Beauty mark.
Yes,
mole,
exactly.
Which is what French court people in the French court actually wore when the Marquis de Sade was alive.
Of course.
Also, cut to before this even happens.
Yes,
we go back to Fatima, who is bringing. I think at this point is when she brings the food in and finds that the mermaid necklace she bought for Jeannie is on the floor. So she picks it up and then sets it down, then grabs a salt shaker and just pours salt on the windowsill.
So that ants won't get in.
Is that what that was for?
No, I'm kidding.
I have no clue.
No, you have to put baking soda down or something like that. Chalk.
Is that really
No,
true?
It's chalk. That's what it is. Yep.
Oh, I thought it was sugar. Maybe that's why I have so many. Yes.
Anyway, we cut back, and actually, during that puppet show, we cut back all the way to an insert of the Marquis de Sade in his jail.
Yes.
Where he and the Madame de Beaumont, the one who looks like and is in fact played by Jeannie, she comes in and she makes fun of him for being in jail.
And I don't know why she's there too, because he was like,
man.
I asked for you to come and now you're here. This is great.
Yeah. Why would you listen to him? Why would you even go in there? I don't know what any of this means.
Does he have sex with her there?
I can't remember. I think he
assaults her
in some way
in
or
the
another.
jail.
Yeah, he grabs her neck.
Because what happens is it looks like he assaults her and tries to bend her over.
Yeah.
Then we cut back to the puppet show.
And then the king has actually bent the puppet over.
The king puppet, like the Punch puppet has bent over the Judy puppet.
Yes.
While the Marquis de Sade
is
puppet
still
watches.
sitting in jail. Yes. I don't know. I don't know, man. And then we finally get the modern Marquis de Sade.
Still played by Robert Englund. We are 45 minutes into the movie at this point. Of a movie that is an hour and 38 minutes. So halfway through the movie, we are finally introduced to the villain.
Yes. And he is that his real hair color, or is that's dyed? That is absolutely.
He looks ridiculous.
Bleached
I laughed
like hell.
so hard.
Oh my god!
When he showed up, I was like, "This is not a good look."
No. Funny enough, I did notice that at the very beginning of the movie, we pan down from a window in the jail down to the Marquis de Sade, and funny enough, in this point, he is sitting in an interior window looking out over his courtyard-ish type
revelers,
of thing. Yes.
His partiers.
And then he comes down, and I didn't know if that was a good job of Tobe Hooper or if that was just a coincidence. He likes going from up to down. But I don't know.
I would say that's 50-50.
Yeah, right. But yeah, then that's when he meets Jeannie, and Sabina introduces the two, and that's the end of the movie, pretty much.
Nope, not even close.
Okay.
Not even close. Because at this point, Beth comes up and she's like, I gotta get out of here. You gotta come with me. They're gross. They asked me, I can't even tell you what they asked me. And at this point, I actually wrote down, why are these two friends?
I don't like her.
I have no clue.
No. Oh, and Chuck was being an idiot. She's implying that he was asking her for, I don't know, some sort of sexual favor.
Well, this was the weird thing, because she gets outside and she's like, they just asked me, Chuck and his dad. I can't even, it's so gross. I'm sorry to ruin your night. I'll have to tell you about it later, but I just can't even, I'm leaving. And she gets into a taxi. And I wrote down, just fucking tell her what happened.
That's the most frustrating thing in any movie, where essentially if they had finished the sentence, or if they had just, it's something that I've heard as a Post-it note problem. Like if you had just left a Post-it note, there wouldn't be conflict in the movie.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because all that needed to happen at this point was her to be like, they asked me to participate in an orgy.
Yeah.
Chuck said to me, if I loved him, I would fuck his dad.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Right.
But that's not what happens.
No.
All she says is, I can't, I'm going to go.
Yeah. And the fact that she doesn't say, it almost doesn't change anything. I don't know.
Well, and that's the thing, too, where it's like, listen, I could understand if, like, she had come over and said, I just came from this place. Mm-hmm. This thing happened to me. I'm really broken up about it. And I don't want to talk about it, but I need a shoulder to cry on.
Sure.
Okay,
yeah,
I get it.
Yeah.
But what she's essentially doing is like, listen, we were at this party where this horrible thing happened to me.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think you should be here either, because maybe these people are fucking weird. All of them.
Well, that's what you think she would have said.
Yeah.
But no, what she says is, I don't mean to ruin your night. I'm just going to head off, and I'll tell you about it later. Like, as a friend, you'd think what you would do is say, listen, this is what happened to me in there. Mm-hmm. You should not go back.
Yeah, that's probably a bad crew.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that's not what happens.
Nuh-uh. And as you said, 45 minutes into the movie, we get our bad villain. And 50 minutes in, we finally see that Robert Englund was born to haunt your dreams.
Yes, because this is where we get the Nightmare on Elm Street like dream sequence.
Yes.
And I wrote down, it actually, I'm kind of embarrassed by this, but it took me a really long time to be like, oh, Nightmare on Elm Street, Night Terrors.
Yep.
They are cashing in on the title.
Oh, of course they are. Yeah. Night Terrors, Nightmares. Yeah.
But it was an embarrassingly long time before I made the connection of all of that stuff.
Oh, no. It's fine. It's fine.
It was during this dream sequence where I was like, where I actually thought to myself, this looks like a dream sequence out of Nightmare.
Yeah.
Oh, God damn it. God damn it. They're cashing in on a title and the cast. Mm-hmm. Oh, shit.
Yeah, they are. Well, and they also make another weird reference that I'll get to later, and I don't know if they meant to. But anyway, yeah, and the fact that the weapon that is used
is a
retractable needle type of thing. If you've ever seen the air compressor bolt gun that they use to murder cows on the killing floor in a slaughterhouse.
I was thinking of what Anton Chigurh.
Well, that's what he's using.
Yeah,
exactly. It's
No Country for Old Men.
That's right. I want to watch that again.
Yeah.
Can we stop this? I'm gonna watch it real quick.
Nope. We have to watch Sallow first.
Okay. So
eat shit, motherfucker.
And it was in the position almost as if it was one of Freddy's glove fingers.
Yeah,
it was such a fucking direct ripoff.
Well, to the point where he practically was scraping it against the wall as she was running down like a staircase. She was running down a staircase, but it looked like the scene in the first movie.
Exactly.
Where she's running down the... the alleyway.
The alleyway, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Then, at that point, is that when Jeannie goes home?
Well, she talks to somebody, and I don't remember who she talks to, but she has this line that made me go like, what the fuck is happening? She goes... Out of nowhere, she just goes, well, my mother walked out of a window on the 22nd floor, and there was a lot of talk.
Well, I mean, she had, like, 4 people to talk to, so it was probably Sabina.
I guess so.
Yeah.
But that scene seemed really weird.
Yeah. Oh, is this when we cut to the archaeological dig?
Yes, we do.
We finally see the dad again, Bob. Bob Watson?
Madison.
Dr.
Madison.
Yep. That's right. Dr. Madison. And
Madison Watson.
Madison. Bob is what...
Bab.
Anyway...
Listen here, Bab.
They start breaking through some weird anteroom in a chamber of something. I don't know what it was.
Which struck me because I thought to myself, wait a second, this can't be the way... Because they just basically take a pickaxe and break through the room, through the door, and I was like, what if there was something really important on the other side of that door?
Yeah, it was like they were the Goonies trying to get out of the cave.
Yeah.
You know, and... And then he just goes in and he's like, fascinating. And then he starts dusting shit. Like, it was... He's just a bad archaeologist.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he is not... He's not careful. He's not... And then the weirdest thing about it is, and I don't know if this is the purpose of that people have when they are archaeologying, but he is very much looking for some sort of Jesus connection? Is that what like I don't?
But that was the thing. It was super unclear because like he breaks through the wall and he looks at one thing and he's like, oh, over here. This was actually really funny to me too because when they break through the wall, it's actually not him that breaks through the wall. It's another guy and they're like, Bob, get over here, Bob, get Bob. And he runs in. Madison runs in and he runs up to this like statue on the wall and he just has a brush and he just walks up to it and he looks at it and he goes, and he starts brushing it for no reason.
No, not at all.
He turns around and he sees another one. He starts brushing that for no reason. Yeah. And then they go to a third chamber, and in the third chamber, like this like gigantic sarcophagus looking thing with a gigantic mermaid on top of it. Uh-oh, mermaid again. He reads the front of the chamber. Did you write down? Because I actually didn't write down what he said, but it's something Jesus-y.
He said it was a misspelling of Abraham, but it did have something to do with Jesus as well. I didn't write it down either. Hey, Research AJ here. This didn't take much research. I just rewatched the scene of the movie, and it's the Lord's Prayer in provincial Greek. And the only thing that's interesting about that is that they misspelled Armand, I guess. No context for that. All right, back to it.
Yeah, and he was like, oh, cool, let's just open this. And
he just push it open.
Just pushed open the thing.
Yep.
And inside of that big, gigantic, like, sarcophagus-looking thing is just a smaller chest,
stone
like
chest of something like that. And
he pulls that out.
He had all of the delicateness of Tom Cruise in The Mummy. You know, just fuck everything. I just want the antiquities.
Yes. He was,
Also, I just want to say, Alexandria is about 900 kilometers from Jerusalem. And I don't know if Jesus ever made it over to there.
Well, and not only that, let's just throw out that Alexandria was an ancient Greek city.
Sure.
Well, and actually, it's funny that you bring this up, because I actually wrote down, my actual note at this exact moment was, the three basic storylines of this don't gel, because right now we have the Marquis de Sade, who is French, and I cannot figure out how he, as a French person, connects in any way with what's happening in Egypt. We have an archaeologist in Egypt who is looking for Christian antiquities.
Yes.
And I don't understand how that is any way connected to the cult.
And what does the fucking mermaid mean?
And what does the mermaid mean? Yeah, all of this stuff.
They said something about Gnostic something or other, and I don't know. I don't know either.
Yeah.
I know. Me again? Okay, turns out our ignorant asses didn't know about a few things. Listen, this movie is needlessly complicated, and some of the more esoteric parts of the script don't really seem to advance the plot and serve more to confuse issues. But here are some cliff notes. Christianity actually did exist in Alexandria all the way back to the 1st century AD. Apparently, Alexandria, the largest city in Egypt, was also one of the most ethnically diverse, and therefore fostered a community of Christians, Jews, Romans, Greeks, and Egyptians. Gnosticism, or gnostikos in the original Greek, focuses on the more mystical aspects of Christianity and Judaism. It was, in fact, reaching its popularity during the 1st century, but became looked down upon by mainstream religion over the next few centuries. As for the mermaids, I only found a few references in Alexandria, Egypt to mermen or merwomen, specifically a beautiful piece of art called Mermaid and the Sea statue. Finally, I would highly encourage you to check out the essay Gnostic Semblances in Disney's The Little Mermaid by Professor Japheth, and also the webpage gotquestions.org, where they ask and answer the question, are mermaids mentioned in the Bible? I guarantee you will have read words. So, all right, back to it. Anyway, man, I can't believe we're only an hour into this thing.
At this point, we're only an hour into the movie. Although, at this point, one of my favorite scenes in the movie does come up, and I actually thought this was really great.
What's that?
Jeannie is back home again, and she's hungry, so she goes downstairs. She opens up her fridge, and before she can actually, open the fridge completely, she gets a call from her dad. Mm-hmm. She goes and she answers the phone. She has a conversation with her dad, and her dad's like, oh my God, we got so much stuff. This is really cool. Mm-hmm. Everything's great. Blah, 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 blah. And Jeannie is just standing there on the phone, and the screen is completely black.
It was nighttime. Such great framing. I know what you're going to say, but this is such great framing.
And all we see is her.
Yep.
And in the back, we see the refrigerator with a light on.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're sitting there in that scene longer and longer, I was like, what's that in the fridge? Is that a head in her fridge?
That's a
Oh
fucking
my god,
head.
is that Beth's head in the fridge?
That's Beth's head.
She walks over, like she hangs at the front, she walks over, she turns around, she sees the head, and like
she reaches in to get like milk or something and like knocks the head out.
Yeah, like it's like she doesn't quite see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually thought that was such a beautiful scene.
It would have been so good in a purely horror movie.
Yes.
You know, like if that had been the brand of this movie, but it is so confused about what it is. And then after the head falls out, Jeannie runs into Fatima's room and Fatima is hanging there with her eyes plucked out.
Yes. And by the way, Beth's head's eyes were plucked out.
Right, yes, exactly. Just same thing with the Marquis de Sade making that dude rip his own eyes out. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to go back to that one shot. I just thought that was like one of the most perfect horror shots in a movie that I've seen in a really long time, because it really sets up a couple of things. Number one, it is actually scary to just have that in the background. And we as the audience are seeing it, but it's also not like hero shotted.
No.
So you have to sort of look for it.
It's subtle.
It's subtle. And then we're like, once you notice it, you're like, oh my god, she's going to have to contend with that in a second.
And it's fun because we are ahead of the hero. Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
Yeah, all of that stuff was great. Mm-hmm. At which point, she freaks out because she's seen the head, she's seen Fatima's body. She runs to Sabina's house, which she's in like slippers, and she actually falls over in the shot, like trips, and I don't think she was supposed to.
I don't think so either. I think they could do one shot, and that was it.
Yeah, but good on Zoe Trilling is the actress.
Right,
Zoe Trilling, which good on her for falling and then getting up and continuing running. Zoe Trilling, by the way, canon connection, she was in The Borrower.
She was.
Yes, she was in The Borrower. She was also in Night of the Demons 2, Leprechaun 3, and Dr. Giggles. Which some really fun horror movies there.
Well, and I was actually reading her bio, and it actually says on IMDb she has a cult following, and that her following does not know what is going on in her life right now. Apparently she has gone off the radar, but people wish that she'd come back to horror.
Oh, yes. Well, that's what they always wish. If you get in the right couple of horror movies, you can make a living for life, basically.
It's true. That's very true.
But anyways, she runs into Sabina's house, and she is being... And the way this is all shot as she's running is it's very similar to the shot when she's running away from the Marquis de Sade / Robert Englund's character down the staircase earlier. She's being comforted by Sabina. Sabina, like, all of a sudden out of nowhere is like, I just love your face and I love your breasts. And she, like, just starts grabbing her boobs.
Yeah.
Sabina starts grabbing Jeannie's boobs. And it's been, like, 4 or 5 minutes since Jeannie has found Beth's head in the fridge.
Yeah.
And I honestly, at this point, finally, like, 5 minutes later, I was like, oh, this isn't a dream sequence.
Mm-mm.
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
And the reason I thought that was because there have been like 3 or 4 dream sequences in the movie, and the way all the dream sequence started is a shot of Jeannie's house, and then we cut into the dream sequence.
Yeah.
This started like from the outside of the shot. So this started with a shot from the outside, the same exact shot that they've used in all the other dream sequences, to the inside, and it turns out that it was real. And I don't know if that was on purpose or if that was just really bad editing.
It's really bad editing.
Okay, because for the longest time, did you have that same thing where you're like, this is all a dream sequence?
Yeah. Well, it's very hard to tell what is a flashback, what is a dream sequence, what is the shift in time. Also, at this point, I don't remember if this is before or after she is running away to Sabina's, but her dad, there's just a scene where he gets his throat slit.
So I know for a fact that this is, what happens is, because that's when the moment where I went, oh, this is not a dream sequence, this is real.
Right.
And that was after she went to Sabina's.
Yes, and is that after or before Sabina drugs her?
I think then Sabina drugs her, because we've got the naked snake woman.
Oh my god.
Has made a horrible choice of shoes. I don't know if you saw her shoes.
I did not.
But I was like, those are terrible, because they're like 90s chunky heels
that
of course. Are so of the time period, but they are spray painted to look snake-like,
all goldy,
just like the rest
goldish.
of her body was.
And you know what? Rather than reminding me of a snake, she felt like a porn version of Puck from Midsummer Night's Dream.
Oh, hey, great.
Bringing
Midsommar.
it all back.
Yeah,
bringing it all
Wait,
back.
I don't understand. Puck was not in Midsummer. Oh.
Yes, actually, Puck was.
Midsummer Night's Dream.
Right.
Got
I'm
it,
so sorry.
got
I'm
it.
so sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
I need
different
to clear this
Midsummer.
up.
Yeah, different Midsummer.
But I felt... Oh, and also... Oh, my God. That dream sequence with Sabina Snake. When...
Was that Sabina?
Wasn't it? I would
I
assume
have
there's
no
like
clue.
5 characters. I would assume
It
that
was
they
so
wouldn't hire
unclear.
somebody else. And at the same time, we look up and there is a cross
That's right.
above the bed that spins around, and it has Robert Englund as one of the two of him. I think he's
It's the Marquis.
Paul. Is it the
It's the
Marquis?
Yeah.
And he's just looking down on them having sex, and then it cuts back into
because he's saying something to her, like
he says something. Yeah,
he's like quoting his book. I think is what's happening.
that's right. It was. Yeah. Again, that's what I meant by the pseudo philosophy. Like,
Yeah.
it like very rarely meant anything. For all I know, could have been direct quotes from his book, but
Yes.
they really didn't make any difference. They were just nihilistic.
Yeah.
Nihilistic about pleasure, pain, relationships, humanity,
Which is the
something
Marquis
like
de
that.
Sade. I mean, like,
absolutely.
let's be honest,
I
so-
know, but like, if that's your tenuous grasp of philosophy, then that doesn't really have any relation to the movie or the theme
Right.
or the story overall. It just
Absolutely.
it makes you a Marquis de Sade themed bad guy, like
Yes.
Psycho. You know?
Yes. So the Marquis de Sade watches them have sex in the dream.
Sure.
Then we cut to Sabina and Jeannie laying in bed together.
And I assume that this is in Paul Chevalier's house now, because it doesn't look like her
think
place.
so.
Because
I think you're right.
He's there now.
He is there, and he is just sitting watching
Mm-hmm.
them again, but this time as Chevalier.
Yeah.
Then he stands up, and he does that thing that I don't understand. I've never understood this. The jacket over the shoulders
Yeah.
thing, where you, like, it's a suit jacket, but you don't put your hands through the suit jacket.
Oh,
you
yeah,
just
yeah,
put
yeah,
the
yeah.
jacket over your shoulders.
Right.
And then you have to, like, keep your hands and arms close to you,
Mhm.
because if you put them out, your jacket will fall off.
Fall off. Yes,
So
exactly.
you're sort of like a Tyrannosaurus Rex at this point. I have never understood, and it's only movie villains who do this.
Yep. It's class, Nick.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, it's class.
There's another thing that comes up shortly after this, because
Mhm.
I do know that we cut to a mermaid scene again, and this
Of
is what I
course.
wrote down, like, what the fuck is with all the mermaids?
Mm-hmm.
And then Sabina and Paul Chevalier are just, like, in a room together,
Hanging out.
drinking. And this is another thing that only evil rich people do in movies.
Yeah.
He now has his jacket on,
Mm.
which is weird, right? Like, with his hands through it,
Mm-hmm.
and they're listening to classical music, and then he gets up and he starts conducting the classical recorded
God.
music,
Yeah.
which is, again, a thing that only rich evil people do in movies.
Yeah, of course. And that actually, I felt like during that point, a better movie would have actually ended there. I know it would have been an hour and 10 minutes, but a better movie would have ended with him playing the music and then it cutting down to the dungeon where it shows Jeannie strung up, hooked up to this weird contraption hanging from her arms. And the song The Thieving Magpie by Fritz Reiner is like coming to a crescendo, and she's just screaming, help, help, help. If it was a nihilistic movie, it
Well,
fucking
and it'd be
ends
really
there.
fucking creepy.
It ends there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But if it did end there, we wouldn't get to what is perhaps my favorite part of the movie. It's approximately 1 hour, 14 minutes, and 50 seconds. And
shows how much we checked the fucking time.
Well, I needed to know this because this was really important.
Yeah.
Because I need everyone to take a look at the picture that is hanging on the wall.
Oh, God. Oh, I saw the picture, yes.
Which is a picture of a woman, but the woman is in the shape of a vagina.
Okay, yes.
I sent you a picture, AJ. Please take a look at that picture.
I'm on it.
You could actually see, like, the hood of the vagina. You can see the labia. in her arms.
And also
and
she is clearly having what looks like maybe a child or a really heavy flow.
Or a miscarriage.
Or that.
So it looks like a woman who's having a miscarriage, and that woman is in the shape of a vagina. Do you see where I'm getting at there? Do you
definitely
see
the vagina? Yeah.
So I gotta be honest. The next 3 minutes of this movie, that picture kept showing up.
So distracting.
I just couldn't stop looking that I actually had to rewind the movie. So I could be like, wait, what was happening? Because I don't know what was happening.
Yeah.
Through all of this, I want to note that we cut back to that Mermaid Cult that Fatima kept going to.
Sure.
They are currently, at this point, having what seems like a funeral for Fatima? Question mark?
That's right. They absolutely are putting, like, coins over her eyes.
Yes.
And also a coin in a scale above her.
Yes.
For some reason.
And I think I have discovered something.
Okay.
Sort of.
Good.
But not quite.
Go ahead. We'll talk it out.
Well, because that coin on the scale comes back later.
It does, yes.
But what ends up happening at this point is Mahmoud comes back.
He comes down into the dungeon that Jeannie is in, and this is
where we find out.
This is my favorite. This is absolutely hilarious. Because he comes in, not rushed, but kind of excited to see her. And she's like, oh my God, thank goodness that you're here to save me. And to me, I was like, wait, no, he's involved. Clearly. How would he have gotten in? He didn't even know that she was there. And then it's so funny because as we were ahead of her in the refrigerator scene.
Yes.
We are way the fuck ahead of her in this scene.
Moment.
Because then she says, wait a second. Wait, you're part of this. And then the best line delivery ever since Troll 2. Whatever this is.
Whatever this is.
Of course it's, he's fucking involved.
And at this point, we find out, is the one who slit her dad's throat because he pulls her dad's head out of a bag. Which she freaks out at. And this is actually the part where I thought was something very fascinating. Because Sabina sees this and she's like, why did you have to do that? Yep. And Chevalier is like, because it's torture, you stupid idiot, basically. But that was a moment that I actually really enjoyed. I thought Sabina, at that point, so eventually what ends up happening is Sabina turns on them. Well, actually, the first thing that happens is Chevalier kills Mahmoud.
Yes. And then he actually, this was the only part that I really liked about his philosophy or any of his lines, was that he said something to the effect of, you either can't have any cohorts or you have to be prepared to kill the cohorts that you have.
Yes. Something to that effect. Which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, and regardless of what we're talking about this, I enjoy Robert Englund as a bad guy in anything.
Oh, I'm right there with you. I feel like I've seen a bunch of stuff with Robert Englund.
Yeah.
I saw this movie. They did a remake of the Herschel Gordon Lewis movie, which was called 2000 Maniacs. They made a new version of it called 2001 Maniacs with Robert Englund as the mayor.
Nice.
The movie is terrible, but he is so much fun. I don't know if you've ever seen Zombie Strippers, which is also a terrible movie.
Yes, I have.
He is so much fun.
Yeah.
So I'm with you in that, like, somehow... And he's... Look, I hate to say this. I don't know if he's a great actor, but his performances are always delightful.
They are, and I think what it is it doesn't even have to be that he's a great actor. He just embodies it. He commits.
Yeah, I think that's it. Maybe that's what it is. He just goes for it.
Yeah.
In the best of ways.
Yes.
But anyway, so the head gets cut off. Chevalier kills Mahmoud. For whatever reason, we cut back to Fatima's funeral, and I don't know why.
No. Well, it'll all make sense.
Does it?
Soon.
Because at this point, it's revealed that Mahmoud has brought the chest.
Yeah, the stone chest that the father had discovered.
And Chevalier seems so excited.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, oh, yes, I finally have what I'm looking for. I finally have what I'm looking for. This is great. And I actually wrote down, like, oh, this is awesome. Finally, at an hour and 24 minutes of this hour and 38-minute movie, all of the storylines are going to converge.
Yep.
I got so excited. He opens up the chest and he pulls out scales.
Yeah, it's the exact same scale.
Liberty, blind justice scales.
Yes, that's right.
Those are the scales he pulls out, and he's like, "Scales? God damn it!"
And they're basically the exact same scales that they put the coin on at Fatima's funeral.
Yes, and at this point, he freaks out. He gets dressed like the Marquis de Sade.
He smashes the mirror in the most cliche thing of like, if a person has lost their mind and they look through a broken mirror, that means they've lost their mind.
Their minds are gone. He then says he's going to kill Jeannie.
Yep.
And I actually thought this was a really interesting line. I wish they would have developed it just a little bit more. But he was like, I don't even know how I'm going to torture you and kill you yet, but I know I'm going to do it.
It's going to be due to my whim or something like that.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting, except for almost immediately after that, he was like, you know what? I'm just going to stab you with this, like, the thing
the poker.
That looks like, the
needle poker.
Exactly. Like a lance. It's like a lance.
Yes, yeah.
So he goes to stab Jeannie, and then out of nowhere, Sabina stabs him in the back.
Of course.
Which I thought was great. Mm-hmm. She lets Jeannie out of the cuffs that's holding her up just in time for Chevalier to stab Sabina and kill her.
Naturally.
Jeannie, though, gets out, starts running. And as she runs...
Jeannie gets confused and runs downstairs somewhere. I don't know where that was.
That was unclear.
And in fact, it's the same place. It's the same place that Beth was killed earlier.
Was it?
Yes, it was. It was that weird down the stairs thing and over to the water. And but before,
we don't know where Beth was killed.
No, because there is that point, that flashback point where it shows Chevalier with the hacksaw going towards Beth's throat.
Right, but that was a nightmare. Because that's the same hallway that earlier in the movie Jeannie is chased in her nightmares, in her night terrors.
But that ends up being where they are.
Right, but what I'm saying is we actually don't know where Beth is killed.
That's fair. Yeah.
And that's the crazy part too, is because when we do see Beth's body there, she is a full body.
True.
And when we see her body there, it is during one of the nightmare sequences.
That's true. And there's also the point where there's a very short scene where we find out that somebody is looking for Beth. Apparently Beth is the daughter of some diplomat. And Chuck's dad was like, you shouldn't have killed a diplomat's daughter.
Yes. To Chevalier.
And I was like, well...
Chevalier's like, I don't care.
I don't give a shit. So, at the very end...
That sword thing is so phallic, by the way. Too.
Oh yeah,
it's like an uncircumcised penis.
Yeah,
coming out of the turtleneck and popping into the turtleneck.
Yeah. And
also, too, I gotta be honest. Robert Englund runs around and he keeps pressing the button and it goes up and down, like, in and out, like when you press the button on an umbrella and the umbrella goes whoop.
Yep. Yeah.
It's as if when you press it again, the umbrella would go whoop and like come back.
Yeah.
He just keeps opening and closing that umbrella, which is really a knife. But the sound effect on it is like shing, 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 and it's like there's no way that thing makes that noise.
It's very overbearing.
Yes.
And so finally, the final showdown is he reaches her down in this subterranean.
It looks like the sewers underneath Paris.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
Which is why, again, it's like, why are we in Paris?
There was no reason that it should have been in Alexandria.
Yes. And I'm going to get to that in a second, because I want to spend like 2 minutes talking about that.
So finally, we get to the point Chevalier is about to kill Jeannie. And then the Mermaid Cult is suddenly there.
Yeah, and they're praying.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, is like, Chevalier looks at them and he freaks out. And he's like, Jeannie looks over to where they're standing.
Nobody
and it's
there.
Just an empty hallway.
And they did that, they cut back to her looking over and then nothing being there about 10 times within this 2-minute scene, just to make sure that she still doesn't see anybody.
Yeah. And all Chevalier sees is this cult.
Yeah.
Someone steps forward from the cult, puts out scales, and he's like, scales?
Scales?
They put a coin on the scale, and looks like it balances, but somehow that kills him, and he falls over into the water.
Yeah, he starts bleeding from the eyes and the ears.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then...
Yeah.
That's it.
And then that goes to the credits. By the way,
No, that doesn't go to the credits. Because after that moment, that's
right.
we leave Jeannie at that point. Yeah. Like, she's just like...
Well, she shoves him into the water.
Yes, and she runs away, but we don't know if she gets out.
Right, yep.
We don't know anything about that.
Nope.
We cut back to the Marquis de Sade, who's now dying in his jail cell of what I think is tuberculosis.
It seems like it, yeah.
Priest comes in as like, hey, you should find God. And the Marquis de Sade is like, no, fuck God.
Yep.
And the priest is like, well, when you put your finger in a flame and that hurts? Well, hell is that, but like times 1,000. And the Marquis de Sade's like, fuck you, and spits blood in his face, in the priest's face. Mm-hmm. And the priest basically leans forward and goes, you deserve where you're going to go.
Yeah. And then he's like, I'll see you in hell. I'll see you in hell.
Yeah.
And then we cut to credits. I do want to rewind just a little bit to the point where Sabina is trying to defend Jeannie right before he tries to kill her. Sabina says, and I don't know if this was on purpose, but Sabina says, get away from her. And then Chevalier says, you bitch.
Oh, no, I didn't catch that.
Absolutely. It is back to back.
Yeah, that's from Scream 2.
That's right. Yeah, that's the one. But
well,
I was like...
It is from Scream 2. As well as from Aliens.
From Aliens, yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck? Is that
but
really...
Stay away from her, you bitch?
It's actually not.
I know.
I know. You're right. You're absolutely right. No, that's fucking hilarious.
Making fun of that movie, which actually the Scream movies kind of hold up still.
They're not bad.
Story. The third one's horrid, but the one and two is actually a lot of fun.
Sure. And Scream 4 is like... It's actually not bad either.
Both in the... It's in the middle.
Yeah. Anyway, but I just thought that was a fun little nod, maybe?
Yeah.
Who the fuck
I thought
knows?
that's actually interesting.
Yeah.
Look, so here's the thing that really drove me up, probably more than anything else in the movie, is like the storylines. I keep going back to this thing of like, I do not understand why the Marquis de Sade, who is French and lived his entire life in France, has anything to do with Egypt. Yeah. Where I got really excited, where I thought the storylines are going to converge, is when Chevalier opens up the treasure chest.
Well, of course.
I thought what was going to happen is that something in that treasure chest was going to allow him to bring the Marquis de Sade from the past to the present.
Merge with him.
Or merge with him or something.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen.
No.
And to this point, I have zero understanding of why Alexandria and the Marquis de Sade are linked. And actually, I think that's the movie's fundamental flaw.
Is the fact that they wanted to shoot in Egypt.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the fundamental flaw. Like, if at any point Chevalier was like, yeah, I lead this cult and we're looking for this artifact so we could bring the Marquis forward, or we can have the Marquis whatever, and we know that it's here in Alexandria, I'd be like, it's contrived.
Yeah.
But I buy it.
But you've laid out the reasons.
Yes.
And that's why I said at the very beginning, this is like 3 scripts written into one.
Yeah.
And then to have the Mermaid Cult makes no sense at all.
Well, I think the Mermaid
Is
Cult...
it a defending cult?
I think...
Is it like anti...
I could be wrong about this.
Yeah.
But I think what the Mermaid Cult is essentially supposed to be, they are almost like the Fates who cut the string in Greek literature.
Okay.
In mythology.
Yeah.
But they seem to be like... Actually, you know what they actually seem to be more like? In Christianity, when the film version or the cartoon version, when you die, you go to the pearly gates.
Okay. And
St. Peter is there, and St. Peter looks through the book and goes,
judges your
you're going to go to hell, and you're going to go,
interesting,
or you get to come into heaven.
Okay.
Because what it seems like is they weigh the coin for Fatima.
Yeah.
And she passes. And then they show up to weigh the coin for Chevalier, and he does not pass.
Interesting.
And I'm curious if that's somehow... But again, it doesn't make sense in the grander
scheme of things. I mean, we are showing the 2 extremes.
Yeah.
of nihilism and caring very much about something. I don't even know if nihilism is the opposite of Christianity.
No, I don't think so.
It really isn't.
No.
But
I guess nihilism would be the opposite of all religion, not just Christianity.
I guess.
In a way, because in Christianity, or in all religion, you have to believe into something.
Yes.
Whereas nihilism is you believe in
nothing. Yeah. But I again, I don't think that this really threads the needle on any specific philosophical through line.
Yeah.
It felt like stuff piled on stuff piled on stuff.
I think you actually hit it early on, and I hadn't realized it until you had said it, and the more we talk about it, the more clear it is this feels like somebody who has taken Philosophy 101, got just a touch of the Marquis de Sade, and was like, yes, that is a movie. Oh, cool. Did you do any research? No. Why? Okay. I read a single essay.
I read the back of 120 Days of Sodom.
Yeah. Eat shit, bitch.
Yeah.
And that feels, I don't know. So I guess what are we stealing from this movie? Because I got a couple of things that I do think are stealable.
Well, I liked the opening pan-down shot. I thought that was kind of cool.
Okay.
Also, there was a point when Sabina first takes Jeannie up to her place.
Uh-huh.
And she's talking about the singing or the prayer that is constantly happening within the city, and you can hear the singing somewhere in the background. And I actually love that idea of working physical music into a scene. Like source music, like a practical music into a scene. Because when I was in France, actually, and this was such a surreal experience, when I was walking down the Seine, there was a three-piece sort of like busking band with an accordion and a guitar underneath one of the bridges, and I was like, this is so fitting, this is so French. You know, and I love when that is done in movies. And that's, you know, I have a couple other, but you go ahead. What do you got?
Well, I liked, in theory, I think the moment in the beginning of the movie where the Marquis does the whole look at me, and he gets the prisoner to tear his eyes out. I think that's one of those things where we saw the bad version of that, but I think if you made it that the Marquis had the willed himself to torture that man for like a week straight.
Sure.
In order to make him go crazy, I thought that could have been really badass.
Yeah.
I think, you know what? Cash in on your title and your cast, baby. Just go for it. I thought, it's a thing that I don't think I had ever noticed until this movie. But the rich, evil people who love conducting classical recorded music,
oh god,
is a thing to note and then never do.
Yeah.
I think
that's what we've learned.
Yeah. I do think, though, that shot of the head in the fridge was fucking brilliant.
Oh, my God. So good.
And I think that is actually one of those moments where, like, if I were teaching a film class right now, and if I did a section on horror, I would basically throw out this entire movie except for that, like, 3 minutes of filming, because that was genius.
Honestly.
And then I think anytime you can get a picture of a woman shaped like a vagina
Jesus Christ.
In your movie for like 3 minutes, you have to not only do that, you have to track that portrait down and put it up in your office. And
looking back at it right now, she's also surrounded by an egg shape.
Yes.
So that's another one of those things.
It is
multi-layered.
I would say, like, just for this this alone, watch the movie, because this is nuts.
It's spooky.
Spooky. It's so weird.
Oh man. Well,
do you recommend the movie?
I think it's too much of a mess. I don't think it's. I think there are moments in it that are fun, but I don't think that it's not a story. I don't think there's an actual through line to the whole thing to make it interesting enough.
This is one of those movies where, and I think through this podcast people have realized this about me, I really, really love and enjoy good movies, and I also really, really love and enjoy bad movies.
Yeah.
For example, a recent movie we watched, Badlanders, is terrible by all accounts.
Yeah.
I also really loved that, and I had like such a great experience watching that movie because I felt like, and everyone was going for it, and they tried. It just didn't quite land.
Right.
Movies like this I find super frustrating because I can actually see where all you have to do is add about 5 minutes of footage and then take away about 3 minutes of footage.
Yeah.
Just take away some of the rougher things and then just clarify a couple of things, make things make sense.
Yeah.
And this could actually be a really interesting movie about sadism. It could be an interesting movie about sexuality. It could be a movie about the philosophies and what happens when you take like Christianity and you take it and you put it up against like pure nihilism. And you didn't need to do much. You just had to make a few tweaks here and there, and this movie could have been really, I think, actually good.
Yeah. I think
but
it
it's
clears
just
stuff
not.
up. I think it's like you're saying, it's 8 minutes off.
Yeah,
you know,
it really is.
It's clarifies some things.
Have her be super Christian when she shows up.
Yeah, I was going to say make stronger choices because I think this whole movie is logistically a problem and middling.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. I mean, if she shows up and she's in like a full head to toe skirt,
what if she was already wearing a cross,
right?
And then Fatima like blessed it or something like that, or imbued it with something. I don't know.
But even instead of having her come there just being like, "Oh my God, I just had sex and it was great,"
right?
If she showed up, she was still a virgin. She was still virginal, and like when Beth was like, "Oh, I'm dating a dude named Chuck, and he's good in bed." Her being like, "Oh no, you have to wait till marriage," or like, rather than her having
the corruption would have been more complete.
Well, that's exactly what I'm getting at, right? And like, or rather than have her out in like practically nothing. And like, look, I'm not a prude,
no,
in any means, but it's like, how much more effective would it have been if rather than having her out in a crop top and short shorts in the middle of this community, she was in like a long skirt that went down to the floor and like a shirt that covered her neck and all the way down to her hands. She shouldn't wear the headscarf.
No,
right?
No. Yeah.
But like if she's out in that and she's attacked and called a whore because she's dressed,
because you can see her face, you know,
you can see her face or whatever, and then have her question like, what does it even mean? Like, I thought that I was you know what I mean? Like all of a sudden she starts questioning like her own Christianity of like,
sure.
Oh my God, I thought I was prudish.
What is chaste? Yeah.
What is chaste mean? What is that? And then like all of a sudden that starts opening these questions about like, oh, I guess that is a sliding scale because if I went to such and such culture, you know what I mean? Like, could I even wear less but still be more chaste than everyone else?
There's a lot of stuff to analyze, and I think this just needed a little bit more care in it. A little bit. This feels like it was a first draft.
Yes.
And again, it felt like it was elementary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Well, good. Okay.
Yeah.
That's that in the histories. Put it up on the shelf.
It's done.
Yeah. And so, Nick, what are we watching next week?
Well, AJ, I mean, it's up to you, but it sounded like you had some interest in watching Phantom of the Paradise next week.
I think it's going to be Phantom of the Paradise next week.
I mean, it's a non-canon film.
That's fine.
But it might be fun to step away.
And it does have the relationship of William Finley.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tenuous connection at best.
Oh,
but you know what? Let's go for it. Let's go for it. We should mention before we run away for sure that Tobe Hooper has the canon connection of directing Life Force, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and Invaders from Mars for canon films.
Sure.
And then Robert Englund. Oh, here's another fun connection. Robert Englund did The Phantom of the Opera for...
really?
Yeah, for Menachem Golan.
Oh.
Over at 21st Century Films after the split. So, you know, now we've got another pseudo connection in that The Phantom of the Paradise is based off The Phantom of the Opera.
Sure.
I mean, it's a very tenuous connection at best, but you know what? Fuck it. That's what we're going to go with.
I love it.
Cool. All right.
All right. Well,
so Phantom of the Paradise next week.
Phantom of the Paradise next week.
One thing before I know we're like wrapped up and we already said next week on, but one thing that I just realized as I was looking at my notes, the tagline of this movie on the poster is "The patients of Berkshire welcome you."
What?
What? The fuck?
What does that even mean?
I'm assuming that Berkshire was where the Marquis de Sade was being kept, but that is the worst tagline. And if you take a look at some of the poster images of this movie, they do not, in any way, shape, or form,
get you ready for... No.
Yeah, get you ready for this particular film.
Absolutely. The cover is a screaming face with a snake coming out of one eye socket and a forked tongue or forked tail coming out of the other. And in this, I mean, also, I don't think half the people watching this movie going in with that expectation would even understand who the hell the Marquis de Sade was.
Absolutely. And I also want to throw out, too, that the eye sockets, first of all, the mouth on the cover is somebody with a vampire mouth. It's got the fangs.
Right. I forgot about that. Yeah, that never comes into...
Both eye sockets are also mouths instead of eye sockets.
Oh, that's right.
And then the other poster that you can find for this movie looks like a farm.
Uh-huh.
And over the farm is a man whose entire...
Oh, it looks like Leatherface.
Yeah, well, it looks like Leatherface, but, like, if Leatherface was a jack-o'-lantern...
Uh-huh.
Like, it looks like an actual human head where all the insides are scooped out.
Yep.
And there's actually just, like, a candle in the man's mouth, and, like, the rest of his face is like a jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's that.
What the hell does that mean?
I don't know. But anyways, I just wanted to point that out because I thought that was like, what the fuck is happening with this tagline and these posters?
I don't know. And also, just really quick, searching Berkshire and Marquis de Sade comes up with one thing, and it is on Untapped, the beer finding app, that says the Marquis de Sade's Berkshire Hunt. I'm sure it must mean something.
That's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're
All
welcome.
right.
Research AJ here. Okay, here we go. I know we're at the end of this episode, but we couldn't leave you with this mystery, even if you don't really care. Wow, so this was a rabbit hole. First of all, if you haven't seen the poster with the human jack-o'-lantern on the front, it spells Berkshire as B-I-R-K, rather than the much more common B-E-R-K Shire. So that's confusing. The Marquis de Sade was famously imprisoned many times during his life. A list of his imprisoned locations include, and I know I'm going to butcher these, but Château de Semur, Château de la Coste, the Fortress of Meulon, the Château de Vincennes, the Bastille, the Insane Asylum at Charenton near Paris, the Sainte-Pelagie Prison, the Bicêtre Asylum, and once again the Charenton Asylum, where he died. The second to last one, the Bicêtre Asylum, gave me an idea that it might be a French pronunciation of Berkshire. It wasn't, but a quick search showed me there was an asylum built in the 1870s, over half a century after de Sade died, originally called the County Lunatic Asylum for Berkshire, England. But then it was changed to Fairmile Hospital later on, and never had anything to do with the Marquess, and yes, that is how it's pronounced. So I was stumped. Was there a Berkshire asylum / hospital / prison in the movie or in history? What did it refer to? And where did the Marquis de Sade Berkshire Hunt beer come from? Well, the final question I can answer. From the limited information I could glean from the Untapped page, the Marquis de Sade's Berkshire Hunt was a smooth, traditional English-style porter with chocolate notes and low notes. It was created by Booth's Brewing and Bar Supply out of Tampa, Florida, seemingly now defunct. But Berkshire Hunt, where does that name come from? Supposedly, it is based on the name of the Old Berkshire Hunt, a fox hunting association which inspired Cockney rhyming slang to simply Berk, which means an incompetent, objectionable, or annoying person, or an offensive term that rhymes with runt. Yes, indeed, it's entirely possible that the Marquis de Sade, the Berkshire patients, and whoever made the poster for this movie were a bunch of Berks. Or c***s.
Alright, so that's a little addendum after we've already told you what we're watching next week. But
excellent.
Yeah.
Nick, where should we follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Nicholas C. Pappas, and you can check out my forever under construction website at nicholascpappas.com.
You haven't been working on that during this time?
I will.
Yeah.
I eventually will get there.
Okay. Oh no, I know. There's a lot of stuff to be done. And you can follow me at the AJ Hamilton. And you can go to theajhamilton.com and follow us, Creating Canon, at Creating Canon. That's Cannon. And you can email us, creatingcanon@gmail.com. And Nicholas, what do we always say?
Well, before we say that, I just want to point out, too,
sure.
Zaki Noe, who plays Chuck's father in this, was in Lemon Popsicle and the entire Lemon Popsicle series.
Oh my gosh. What's
so
up?
just putting that out there.
Nice.
And what we say is...
Good night and
good canon.
Good enough.
Wow, that is officially, I think, our longest episode ever.
Longest ever. Wow. Maybe your brain is just slow.
My brain's not... Shut up. Fly far, far, far away from here.
I got friends in low places where the whiskey
drowns and the beer chases.
Zoobadoo-badoo. I do need to get all of these out, especially for the COVID ones to make sense.
Yeah, those would be weird if they came out in, like, November.
Yeah, because it's going to be you
talking to
no one alone.
You know, AJ.
Yes, sir.
I'm not big on social graces.
You're not? That surprises me.
On the next episode of Creating Canon. Dun, 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 dun. I think my mind has melted from all of this insideness.
All right.
Man, I was rambling on that one. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
By the way, Night Terrors.
It reunionizes. It brings back together.
Reunites.
AJ, help me. Thank you. Fucking shit.
Wow.
Wait, is it crocodile or alligator? Hold on, let me just make sure.
Are we keeping that in?
No, we're not keeping that in.
He's just a bad architect.
He's just a bad archaeologist, you mean? But come on down to the
Oasis.